All right, hello everybody. I am Chef Julie Cohen as always, and guess what? It's week 5. It's Magical Meringue Week, and very soon here you're going to see why it is that I call it that. So this week is going to be the first week where you have all 3 of those recipes that are due. I know we've kind of been in the school of thought where you see 3 recipes each week and you only have to do 2, but let me be super clear that we are doing all 3 this week. So the crisp meringue cookies, the lady fingers, and then the Swiss meringue and baked Alaska are all due of all of us this week. So let's kind of look at what meringue means to us and a little bit about it. So meringue are basically egg foam techniques. And right here is an example of a beautiful Swiss meringue. And what we're going to be learning is 3 different kinds of meringues and also which get baked to achieve a certain temperature and which get a temperature first to be able to be used right away. So what is due? Before Tuesday at 11:59 p.m., you've got to do the lady fingers, the baked Alaska, the crisp meringue cookies, and the week 5 discussion forum. Some notes on meringue. Start with clean, dry tools and equipment. Let me be extremely clear. You can never, ever whip a meringue or achieve a peak of a meringue if any of your egg white, your tool, or your attachment is even a speck contaminated. So even if you had 1,500 grams of clean egg whites and a pea-sized shape of yolk was in that egg white, those egg whites would never whip. So clean egg whites means no traces of yolk, fat, or shell. Be sure to separate the eggs when cold. That is the easiest way to separate them. So we're all going to be separating fresh eggs this week. I want to say in the beginning here right now too, especially for everyone in archive land, you cannot use packaged egg whites this week. I happen to be a professional of over a decade, so I know what egg whites look like from a carton. It will result in an immediate 0. It's an illegal. It's a foul. You can't do it. So we all have to get eggs in a shell, and you have to learn how to cleanly separate egg whites and egg yolks. If you break a yolk and the smallest amount mingles in the whites, you will not be able to whip a meringue. They whip up the best when cold. So when you're ready to do your mise en place, don't take the eggs out 15 minutes before. Take your carton of eggs out right when you're about to start, throw on some gloves. And in the live session study hall this week, I'm going to show you how to separate eggs. It's actually me you'll be with in my kitchen this week on Friday. So they whip up the best at room temperature, but they break the best when they're cold. Adding a bit of an acid, for example, cream of tartar or a speck of lemon juice or distilled white vinegar can help relax the whites and get a better foam and meringue. Never use packaged egg whites. They are not clean. They do not whip properly. And most of all, we don't want to get a 0 on our assignment, right? And we already know it's not going to work. So chef's telling you, you're never going to get a meringue. They're not clean. You're going to fail. Why even bother trying to like side alley your way through this assignment, right? Just use the fresh eggs and separate them, please. Fold your sifted dry ingredients. Always sift, sift, sift is going to be the theme of the week because we do not want to deflate all the magic that we have built up in that meringue. Use a rubber spatula to fold instead of just mixing. Know your peaks, soft, firm, and stiff. So let me try to pull this up here for you. I want to try to make it a little bigger. Okay, so soft peak is when we kind of look like, have you ever done so many dishes in the sink that you actually get like that huge soap sudsy, like fill at the bottom where you can actually kind of like pick up the soap and almost like throw it and like make little figures within. There's just like so much soap suds that you can actually kind of like grab a little small body of it and like hold on to it. This is what I essentially want you to think of when you're thinking of like a soft peak. It's foamy. It holds on, but it's still really light, and there's usually no sugar yet. The soft peak is usually when we're just whipping the raw egg whites alone first. So I want you to get really used to the word frothy too. Frothy is a word you're going to see a lot with meringues. So please note that the soft peak certainly is holding on to that whip attachment. See how it's inverted upside down. So when we whip something, the bottom of this attachment, imagine when it's on the mixer is upside down, right? So this is the opposite way, this whip attachment right now, just logically, right? You see that this is the opposite way it would be on the mixer. So the fact that we are turning the soft peak from it hanging down here in the bowl and going like this and turning the top of the mixer towards the ceiling and the soft peak is still holding, that means you're at the peak. If you were trying to get your soft, frothy, soft peak and you pull the whip attachment off of the mixer, you invert it so the tip's towards the ceiling, and this mixture starts to just fall through the whip attachment, you're not at the soft peak yet. All that means is you're going to put the whip attachment back on and you're going to whip a little longer. A firm peak is that iconic soft serve ice cream cone. So you guys know like that picture of like a nice spiral soft serve ice cream cone, and then at the top it has like that little weep. There's like that iconic cute little weep. So once you get nice and shiny, nice and firm, but you still have a little bit of a weep, that's a firm peak. Standing straight up at 12 o'clock on the clock. So for those of us that know old school clocks with the minute and the hour hand, when you are dead straight up like this, that is a stiff peak. You have to know your peaks, because if you under or you over whip, just like creaming, remember creaming affected spread, no matter how perfectly we could emulsify or we could add ingredients, if we didn't cream for a long or short enough time for that first step, it wildly, misaffected our formula. If we, achieve a soft peak instead of a firm, a stiff instead of a firm, everything is for a reason. So you want to make sure you know the peaks, you know how to identify them, and that you're able to achieve them when the formula asks you for specific things, okay? So 3 types of meringue. We have a French meringue, a Swiss meringue, and an Italian meringue. The 2 kinds of meringue you're going to see this week are going to be the French meringue and the Swiss. The Italian will come later. The raw common meringue, so you'll hear it as French meringue, raw meringue, or common meringue, right? They're all synonyms. They mean the same thing. This is when we're whisking room temperature egg whites and sugar to a desired peak. And this is the least stable meringue because we use this when the item is cooked after the meringue is made. So this French meringue is the one you're going to be using to make the crisp meringue cookies, which is your example of a baked meringue this week, because we're going to be taking raw egg whites, sugar, whipping them until they create a stiff peak, folding in a bunch of powdered sugar, piping them, and then baking them at a super low temperature for a long time to dehydrate them. But the heat is only introduced in the baking process. In the Swiss meringue, like last week, reintroducing that double boiler, we're going to put the egg whites and sugar over a double boiler until the sugar is dissolved. You're going to be going to 145 degrees this week on that sugar and egg white. Then you're going to take that 145 degree sugar egg white mixture, and then you're going to put it on the mixer with the whip attachment and whip and whip and whip and whip until it gets to a really nice firm to stiff peak. Now, this one is the medium of the 3 of most to least stable because it gets introduced to the heat before it hits the oven, of course, right? We're bringing it to 145, but 145 still isn't hot enough, and we may introduce it to a little more heat, and it's only able to be used immediately. So when we make Swiss meringue, we have to know that we're using immediately. It's not something that can stick around for a long time. Italian meringue, which you won't see this week, but we want to be well versed, is when we're actually making a hot sugar syrup to 245 degrees, and then while the mixer is running, follow my mouse here on this right picture, while the mixer is running, we actually do this amazing song and dance as pastry chefs, where we so perfectly and beautifully pour that 245 degree syrup in the 1-inch spot between the whisk attachment and the bowl. So if you ever look at your whip attachment in your bowl in the mixer next time and you look over it, there's about this much space between the 2, and that's where you pour the syrup, and it whips and whips and whips and makes this gorgeous, shiny, thick meringue. Syrup cooks the egg whites, increasing the stability. Piping bag success. So I know some of us have maybe never used a piping bag or have never used a piping tip before, but the way that you got to make sure that the tip fits in the bag is that only 1/3 to 1/4 of the tip sticks out. If you've got any more than 1/3 or 1/4 of the tip sticking out, the minute you apply pressure, you risk popping that tip out of the bag and it not working for you. Another way to have a really clean setup for filling your piping bag is once you get the tip in the bag, so what you want to do to measure it for the first time before you get used to stuff is have the uncut have the uncut piping bag, throw the tip into the bag. Grab yourself like a little magic marker or scissors, and then right where like the 3rd right here, so imagine this bag wasn't cut. Follow my mouse on this bottom left picture, please follow my mouse. So imagine that this bag wasn't cut and the plastic was all the way down to here. When you threw that tip into the bag, here is where you would want to make like the little scissor indent or the marker indent. Then you pull the tip out, because of course you're not going to cut on metal and ruin your the tip, right? You're going to pull the tip out, you're going to see your indent, then you're just going to cut that little triangle of already measured space off the bag. Then you're going to throw the tip back in, get it in nice and tight, and then right here, please follow my mouse again, right here, where the tip ends in the bag, right here. You're going to take that like the end of a bread bag, you're going to twist and twist and twist it, and then you're going to push the twist into the tip to make a dam. You've basically like made a stopper out of the bag for yourself. So when you're filling that ladyfinger batter this week, when you're putting that crisp meringue into the bag before piping, this is like a foolproof way of knowing the tip fits perfect and then keeping everything from sliding out of your tip and just going everywhere and being a crazy mess for you. Because then all you have to do is get your batter or your meringue in the bag, twist it at the top when you're done, kind of invert it towards the ceiling, and then all you do is actually like pull the tip upward, and that little spiral that you did unspirals, and then you can turn the bag over when you're ready and pipe. That's all I have for that. Let's get into the recipes this week. Does anybody have any questions? Now I want to make sure, well, you know what, let's go over the crisp meringue cookies first, and then I'll do this whole spiel. So the interactive recipe book, we always use it. We usually always use it, but we're going to do a little bit of a different thing this week. I'm going to draw your attention heavily to the instructor announcement section this week. I want you all to pay such close attention to my week 5 Ladyfinger and Baked Alaska assembly videos. This is where I would love it if all of you guys, everyone in all the other classes too, just so you know, Chef Rachel, Chef Emily, Chef Jacqueline, everyone is requesting and teaching and showing their students these simplified versions of the Ladyfinger recipe, the Swiss meringue, and the assembly of your 3-component dessert, which is the Baked Alaska this week. So if you want to hear me out, my most professional advice, my most with your best intention in mind advice is to please use the interactive recipe book for only the crisp meringue cookies this week, and to please draw your attention to the week 5 materials post in the instructor announcement section. Now I know it's a little hard to be like, wait, where is that? It's not in the same place. You got to just go to one other place to get this simplified recipe, the simplified video, and so on and so forth. So the only thing I'm going to be showing you this week in the book is the meringue. I'm going to so quickly say, here's this and here's this, but this is not what I'm going to go over or what I'm going to deeply explain like I do every week. I'm going to explain the one that I think you will have mass success and actually fun doing, and that's going to be the simplified version. So let's look at our raw meringue first, because that's what we learned about first. It's the quickest to make. It's the least stable. It's the one that gets introduced to the heat once it's being baked. So what we want to do is, with the absolute cleanest fresh egg whites, the most cleanest uncontaminated bowl and whip attachment, we're going to use the whip attachment, and we're going to beat the egg whites with the cream of tartar at medium speed, then at high speed, not at high speed first, because all those egg whites are just going to kick up at you. So that's why it says medium and then high. So when you get a little froth on there, it's been about 30 seconds, turn it up to higher. That's the first speck of magic. We have now, with literally 1/8 of a teaspoon, which you know is not even usually a teaspoon measure, it's so small, it's a pinch. So basically with just egg whites alone, you have performed the magic of creating a peak with one single ingredient. Magic created. The last thing we want to do is break that first step of magic. So when we come in for the second step and we've got the mixer running so slowly, raining. The word raining is, I want to say, because we're like gently like drizzling and raining the sugar in a little at a time with the mixer running, and then we're whipping to a stiff peak straight up at 12 o'clock. So we get the soft peak, we get that frothiness, it's hanging on, it's a little bit yellow still. We've made that with just egg whites and a drop of cream of tartar. Okay, now we're going to be so careful. We're going to, with the mixer raining in so slowly, we're going to add that granulated sugar a little bit at a time, raining slowly. Second time magic has been achieved. Soft peak with one single ingredient and a speck of another. Second, when we've now rained in the sugar slowly, carefully, and perfectly, we've created a gorgeous, shiny, stiff peak. Now, the last thing we want to do is break that second step of magic by overfolding or being too difficult with that last step. The last step is once you achieve that nice stiff peak. So if you're whipping and whipping, you stop the mixer, you tap off the meringue on the end of the whip attachment, you take the tip of the whip attachment, you dip it in the meringue a little, you invert it, you flip the tip up to the ceiling, and it goes like this. What does that mean, guys? That means you're at a firm peak, not stiff, and you're going to throw that whip attachment back on, and you're going to keep whipping. That's why you want to know your peaks, and that's why you want to know which comes first, second, third. So soft, firm, stiff. So if you're whipping and you're whipping, you're like, I don't know, never done this before, which you should. You should be constantly stopping the mixer, checking the meringue and inverting. It's the only way you know where you're at. And if you get that little bit of that hangover still, throw the whip attachment on and keep whipping until you get to the stiff peak. Now, be careful because the meringue can get broken, as we saw. It can start turning to styrofoam and separating, getting really lumpy. But just make sure you keep whipping all the way till you get that straight up peak. Now you got that second form of magic. You're at that stiff peak. You're going to take the whip attachment and the bowl off of the mixer. And now very gently and very carefully, to achieve our third round of magic, you are going to fold sifted powdered sugar in. Now, how cool is this, guys? We have 4 ingredients in this recipe, and 3 of them are all of the same measurement. 125, 125, 125. So the sugar to the egg whites is pretty heavy, but if we see sugar and powdered sugar, we see that's actually double the egg whites. So if we have 250 grams of sugars to 125 grams of egg whites, we got to be real careful with that sugar addition, right? Because it's heavy. So make sure that once you get that stiff peak straight up at 12 o'clock, it's what you need to get to, because if you try to fold in the powdered sugar at 125 grams with anything less than a stiff peak, you'll deflate. So you pull it off the mixer, you fold in the sifted powdered sugar. Sifted. I don't care how perfect it comes out. I don't care if you just opened the bag. Sifted powdered sugar. And now it says 200 or 225. I always recommend 200 at like the most. I think all of you should start with 200, and you should start with like 45 minutes to an hour. Now, the point of this is actually dehydrating. Of course, we're putting them in the oven and we're baking them, but what we're more so really trying to do is dehydrate. We're doing so low and so slow so that we keep them starch beautiful white, so that we don't get cracks or bubbling, but so that they get dehydrated on not only the outside, but the inside. So if they are sticky or shiny to the touch, if you break one open and it looks like a shiny marshmallow and it looks like a little wet and like shiny and it's like overly sticky and the inside, like you could grab it and it's wet, it's not dehydrated. So you don't want to get it to the point where it's turning yellow, to where it's bubbling and cracking, or to the point where it's like chalk, but it should be dehydrated. So that's why I say, try a 175 degree 200, start at the hour and see where you're at. If you're still like starch white, they're a little sticky, you're doing perfect at the temp you're at, just add like another half hour and go from there. And then you'll see. But you never want to just like say like 2 hours and like walk away. You don't know how low your oven is. You never made the meringues before. The goal is to keep them so white, to basically have them look like how they went into the oven piped, but just now dehydrated. You know, so that's why I say I think always erring on the side of caution of the lower degree oven and giving them the more time at the lower is always better. Because if you're even a speck too high on a meringue like that, that's when you start to see when the meringues break and you see those like really weird, like sappy little bubbles that are coming out. That's when the sugar is trying to escape out of the cookie too fast. So that's why I say start low, know it's going to be a while, check at an hour, then check at an hour and a half, then check at an hour and 50, you know, because as the time goes on, less and less time will be needed, but you'll have to really, you know, adjust. So do one tray, start at 200. If you're like, oh gosh, this is in too long or taking forever, I think I could have done 225. Or if 200 is even too warm and you've done everything in your power to check them and your oven goes down to 180, try doing a tray at 180 instead. There's also a method where you can turn the oven to 200. You can turn it off. And then in the off oven, you can put the meringues in there and close the door. And then just hopefully the incorporated heat inside the oven will do it. But if you don't have like a pilot lit oven, which none of us really do anymore, they're very old school. If you do, awesome. It usually gets too cool. So I say I really see students do just fine at that 180 to that 200, 215. Just take it low and slow. Do I have any questions on this before I go to the next one? How would we sift just one ingredient if we don't have a sifter? You would take the 125 grams of the powdered sugar in a mixing bowl, Jasmine, and you would, with a wire whisk, whip it for at least 5 to 6 minutes. Abs Jess, we almost never get the holidays off, so enjoy it while you can. You are so right, Nicole. Let's go into the lady fingers. Okay, so again, interactive recipe book. I know this is where we always go, but we're going to step out of habit because Chef has told us that there is another place we're going to go this week. We're all going to make sure that we are in this very helpful and necessary instructor announcements post here. This is where the recipes we're going to go over are. So again, if you would like to attempt this ladyfinger recipe, if you want to start making several different quarter sheet trays using molds, having to encapsulate ice cream into something that is covered with the ladyfinger on the bottom, the sides, and the top, and you just, really feel like, challenging yourself, even though I'm not going to lie to you, the simplified version is a challenge enough. I also just don't want you to feel like you're losing anything by not doing this, or that I feel like you are not strong enough bakers to do this. It's that it's just, it's a lot to ask of an at-home student on the 17th week of class without certain equipment. And like I said in the beginning, in the industry, the way I'm going to show you is 9 times out of 10 the way you're going to see it anyway. So if you want to do this, can you do this? Sure. Are you going to be losing any experience or knowledge doing the simplified version? Absolutely not. And do I professionally, personally, and kind of just like know that you will have an easier and a more fun time doing this? Absolutely. So I'd really love it if you bring your attention for the ladyfinger and the Swiss meringue and baked Alaska assembly to the week 5 instructor announcement section post this week. That's where you're going to find the alternate recipe, the alternate video, and then so on and so forth for both of these. So we're going to have all-purpose flour, and I want you to make sure that you guys are very organized in your mise en place here this week, because you're going to see granulated sugar number 1, granulated sugar number 2. We have 2 of the same ingredient in 2 different increments. So take a little post-it note this week when you're doing your mise and put like 45 on one and 75 on the other, and make sure you push that 45-gram one real close to the egg yolks, and make sure you push that 75-gram one real close to the egg whites so that you don't get confused. So with a wire whip or with a whip attachment on a mixer, beat the egg yolks and the sugar at a high speed until they are very thick, about 3 times their original volume. Now, here's another pro tip I'm going to give you. Remember how extreme I was in explaining to you that the egg whites, the bowl, and the attachment have to be so ruthlessly clean for us to get a meringue? If you reverse step 2 and step 1, you actually don't have to clean your bowl. So pro tip, here's Chef Julie out. If you whip the egg whites, 135, and the 75 grams of sugar to the firm moist peak first, take it out of your mixer bowl, put it in a stainless steel clean mixing bowl that's not the mixer bowl, like another bowl. And then you put in the 90 grams of the egg yolks and the 45 grams of the sugar. The egg yolks are not anywhere near as temperamental as the whites, and you actually can just go right ahead. So if you clean out that bowl as good as you can, you get your now made egg white meringue, take it out, put the yolks and the sugar in, make sure the whip attachment and the bowl is cleaned out as good as you can, even just with your rubber spatula. You'll see me do this in week 5 in the demo. I'm going to show you exactly this little pro tip. But do the meringue, take it out, do the yolks, whip it to the 3-second ribbon. The really cool thing about the yolks and the sugar this week is where last time you had to get to a 3-second ribbon for biscotti, for those of you who did it, how you had to put it on the double boiler. This time you're not double boiling either. You're making a raw French meringue like you just did in the crisp meringue. So you're taking in a clean bowl with the egg whites and sugar, so you actually don't have to rain it as much this week, but I would turn the egg whites on for a few seconds, get it on like medium high for like 10-20 seconds, slowly rain in that 75 grams of sugar, firm moist peak. So remember, firm is like this. We know that we want it stiff for crisp meringue, but listen to the instructions. It means something. You don't want stiff peak. You don't want to whip too far. You want a firm peak on the meringue for the ladyfingers, because if you actually over whip, you risk over folding. And firm peaks come before dry peaks. And this is a very little amount of egg whites and sugar. So you're actually going to get to a firm moist peak pretty quickly. So please make sure that you're not being afraid to like stop that mixer, invert the attachment, and like check that peak. So step 1, put the egg whites in for a few seconds, get it lightly frothy, rain in the sugar, get the firm moist peak, pull it out of the bowl, wipe the attachment off with the rubber spatula. Now, put in the 90 grams of the egg yolks, the 45 grams of the sugar. Whip, 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 and whip till you get a beautiful, thick 3-second ribbon, triple the volume. You know how to check for the ribbon. You're going to stop it. You're going to pull the attachment up. You're going to go like this. If your drippings hold 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, we're solid. Now you're done with the 2 separated egg mixtures. Now, very carefully and very gently, you're going to take the whites that you whipped first, the firm peaked meringue, and at a third at a time, you're going to fold the whites into the yolks. a third at a time. So eye it. You're looking at your yolks. It's in front of you. You're probably going to use this bowl. They're already in there. You're looking at the whites. Take a third, gently put it in, J-fold. So you're looking at your bowl. Imagine that there is a fake compass in the bowl like this. North, south, east, and west. You want to take the rubber spatula and from the north come all the way down with the curved side of the rubber spatula towards you, the straight side away from you. North to south, come all the way down the middle of the mixture. Then like a J, bring the rubber spatula into what would make an uppercase J and swing to the west. So north to south, swing to the west. Then take the bowl and rotate it to the right 90 degrees. Now, where north was is over here. So take the rubber spatula again, north to south, come over like a J, give the bowl a 90-degree turn. Now, every time you give that 90-degree turn and you do that gentle J-fold where you're going all the way down from the top to the bottom of the mixture, and then you're so gently bringing it up and folding it over, then by turning, you're now hitting another quarter of the recipe by going down to up and folding from the top to the bottom. Now you're doing it again. And in this quarter-like rotation, you don't ever have to wonder about hitting everything in the bowl or about overfolding, because this is very gentle. It's very neutralized, allows you to get everything from top to bottom without, kind of deflating or overfolding one part of the mixture more than the other. So if you kind of get into this nice little song and dance of down the middle, up and around, turn, do, 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 you'll see that you're like, oh, wow. I feel like I spent 10 minutes kind of folding things into each other before. Felt like those egg whites would never disappear. But now that I've got that J-fold thing going, I'm feeling like this is much more simultaneous with what I need to do. So a third at a time, with fold so gently, J-fold those whites into the yolks. Once that's done, you're going to, in thirds again, take the little bit of flour here, the 150, and you're going to sift it. Please sift it. This is the way we're going to break that magic. So you made the yolk magic, you made the meringue magic. You folded those together, magic. Last thing we want to do is have the flour be too heavy. So sift it and add it 3 different times. And just like you folded the whites into the yolks, sifted flour 3 times till we get that uniform mixture. Get that tip in the bag nicely, dam it up, plug it, put a half batch to only a third to a half of the ladyfinger batter at a time. Not only do you not want to put it all in there at a time because it's not organized, but because it'll actually start to deflate. So hear me out, and just a third to a half of the full batter at a time into that bag. Now, what you guys are going to do, and I'm going to pull this up, so just hear me out. You're going to make the bases for your baked Alaska. So we cannot make our baked Alaska or our Swiss meringue this week until the lady fingers have been made, baked, and cooled. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to make like these snail shell spiral bases that are about 3 or 4 inches wide, and that is going to be the base of our baked Alaska. And that's why this simplified version is amazing, because instead of trying to find a ramekin, cutting out circles and then cutting out rectangles to make like a full encapsulation around this ice cream, we're actually just going to have our beautiful circle spiral base. We're going to take a nice scoop of ice cream and put it on top, and then all you have to do is take the meringue and cover the ice cream. Doesn't that sound like so much more nice and like attainable than like, it's like very, very much a to-do. So this is how we are making the bases for our baked Alaska. And then also, because we are becoming amazing pastry chefs, we need to know how to just physically pipe a ladyfinger. So just to show the format of piping, so let me not confuse you, the ladyfinger piped into the literal finger shape that is required of you this week, that will not be being used for any reason besides showing that you made them and showing me the inside of one. So when you look at the list of steps this week and it says, lady fingers on the tray after baking, break 1 in half, we're not breaking our spiral bases in half, right? We're breaking our lady finger in half, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to pipe me just 6 to 8 fingers, and you're going to use the rest for at least 4 to 6 bases. Now, the final step after you pipe, I want everyone to write this down. I don't want a single person in my class to miss this. Sift the top of the lady fingers with powdered sugar. It's how you get that iconic skin, that light crackle top. It's how you get that mystical, magical little crunch on top that everyone's like, how do they do that? That is how. So it's part of the procedure. It's not optional, and it's what you got to do. So you're sitting there, you got the spirals, you've got the fingers. before you put them in the oven, if those things are not tapped in white sifted powdered sugar, stop yourself, grab the powdered sugar, grab the sifter, cover them completely. These are meant to be a light golden brown, light. So they are a little bit on the pale side, but they're light golden. So I'm going to show you exactly what this all looks like. I'm going to show you exactly what you're piping, but it's going to be 375 for about 10 to 12 minutes. I'll tell you all day. I think mine always take 12, but I think the fingers take 10. Now, let me put a few faces to a few names here, okay? So the way that I want to make sure that we are doing our lady fingers for the simplified version, that's amazing, that's almost foolproof. If we can get these, if you get the yolks to ribbon, if you get the whites to just the firm moist peak, and you are so gentle with folding, I promise you, like, you won't do anything wrong. You want a very plump, volumized lady finger batter. So you're going to see here when she starts to pipe, I'm going to show you the spirals. I'm going to show you how every movement of that spiral in the circle tip does not move. So if you're piping your lady fingers this week and they start to melt into one circle, or the fingers start to sloop and they get really thin, so check out this 3-second ribbon, but so much faster and easier to achieve because it's raw. So this was never put on heat, and she's showing you I'm only at 1 or 2 seconds. So see, she's testing. Doesn't matter that Chef Colette is like an executive pastry master chef. She's been doing this for decades, but like, we never stop checking ourselves. It's the only way we know. It's our visual indicators as chef. There's nothing wrong with you if you are stopping this mixer 2-3 times to check a ribbon, to check a meringue. That is what you're supposed to do. So she's done the egg yolks first, which is fine, but now she's going to have to completely clean the bowl and the whip attachment. That's why I say to you, if you do the yolks first and then you do the whites first and then you pull this out, you can actually go right in there with the yolks. But she has 2 different bowls and 2 different attachments, which I and many of you probably don't have the pleasure of having, which is why I say save yourself time, save yourself the headache, do the whites first, clean as good as you can with rubber spat, and then come in with the yolks. Now she's going to whip to this firm moist peak, and I want to mix. See raining in while the mixer's running, raining in. See the tap? See that light tap? See how we're not going light tap, raining, being so careful, just like 5-6 grams are going in there at a time, right? Okay, so let's look. See, she's checking. It's so soupy, nothing's holding. She knows she's not there yet. She's not there yet. She's going to go back. She's going to go back, right? Nothing's holding. It's not sticking. So, and now check this out. We're going to look for a firm moist peak. See, and then you're going to dip it in and you're going to pull it up, dip it in and pull it up. And she knows that nothing's sticking, so she's going to keep whipping here. See, it's a little too underdone. It's got to keep going. See how it kind of just started to fall. See how it wanted to hold on, and check that out. So if you have too much meringue on there too, you won't be able to assess where you're at properly. So make sure you're not just stopping the mixer and like pulling it up. You got to tap all the meringue off and then only have like a tablespoon on there and flip it. So let me go back to just 2 seconds. Okay. Oh, hold on. Okay. See that weep? And see how, even though it's far away and it's so small, see how that almost looks like shiny? See how it looks moist? See how you're not seeing like foaminess, dryness, like that little tiny thing right there looks firm and it looks moist, okay? So you don't want to start seeing foamy. You don't want to have like a styrofoam. You don't want it to be like foamy and bubbly. That means you've gone past firm and you've gone into dry. Okay, now here's where I really want to show you what we're doing. Now check this out. Okay, see the yolks here. I recommend, even if your bowl is like this, you want more surface area. Causes you to not deflate, and it really allows you to J-fold properly. So even if the yolks are in here and the whites are in here, I think the yolks you should always be putting in a nice wide mixer bowl, bigger than you need. And then a third at a time, just like we went over. Watch how she's going to come in here. Look at the J-fold, see, down and around. Now 3 times with the sifted all-purpose flour coming in here. Now look at how we're setting up the piping tip. See, only a third of it is sticking out. And now she's going to show you how she dams it. And now we're going to start filling it. See how it's dammed? See how it's pushed in? It's twisted and then it's pushed. If it wasn't pushed in like that, you would just see it sitting there flush. Okay, and then here's how you want to get yourself set up. So I want you all to take a half sheet of parchment paper this week and measure out 3 to 4 inches and then make circles. Whatever side you make the circles on with a pen, pencil, or marker, you have to flip over. It's inedible. So the side that you have drawn on is now going to touch the sheet tray, not the food. You're going to take 4 small dollops of that lady finger batter. You're going to put them on the corners of the sheet tray, and then you're going to put the paper down, again, with the pen marks away from the food. And now from the outside in, because doing it from the outside in allows you to only go to where you can stop. Inside out causes us to sometimes overpipe. If we're starting at the end of our border and we can only go inwise, of course we're going to stop at the center, right? So watch how Chef Colette so beautifully, and here's what I mean. See how every single movement of that spiral has not moved? If you pipe this, and then all of the pipe work starts to go like this, and just starts to kind of mend into like one floody circle where you can't see the movement of the tip anymore, it means that the batter is deflated. It means that you either didn't whip the egg whites enough, the egg yolks enough, or unfortunately you deflated while folding. Now watch how liberally and fully covered this powdered sugar is on here. I can still see that there's a cookie there, but that cookie is completely covered in powdered sugar. Now you shouldn't start getting a height dimension on the powdered sugar, or like to the point where you bake it and there's still so much untouched powdered sugar. But as long as you go over in one even layer and it's covered, that's all you got to do. So it shouldn't be little speckles of powdered sugar. And let me be also very, very specific in saying that you have to sift the powdered sugar. Can't tell you how many times I see the most beautiful lady fingers and then someone has taken like with their hands and tried to splotch the sifted powdered sugar on. Not only can you never achieve, no matter how amazing we are, even a Michelin star chef, you can't make powdered sugar look like sifted powdered sugar if it's not sifted. So not only will it weigh down the cookie, not only will the eatability be really choking, but you won't be able to evenly cover the ladyfinger. So I don't care if it's an open sifter, I don't care if it's like a sifter like this, that's a can with the holes on top, but you need to cover the cookies, the ladyfinger and the bases. Now watch, she's going to set up for herself lines on the sheet tray for the ladyfinger. So here, this is all you're doing. And you can pipe a dozen if you'd like to, but like I said, the bases is what you need to make your baked Alaska. If we know that we need those bases to make our other dessert, I highly recommend piping the 6 spiral bases first and then using the rest to make the fingers. So see how just on a nice angle, she's making these 3 or 4 inch fingers, keeping them a little bit of a width apart, and see how they're just one dimension. So on a ladyfinger, you're never like piping like back and forth. You're pushing so much so almost on like a side angle, and you're making them plump and then pulling away. So let me actually play her piping a couple for you, just so you can see that movement I'm trying to discuss. So see how there's a plumpness and then a pull away. So we're not coming back. We're not piping back over itself. And if you also notice, the tip is quite small. She's allowing the pressure of her hand to make the plumpness of the cookie. And look, see how it's on the left of the cookie? Okay, so wait. This is a perfect example of what I'm saying. See how she's piping from the left, not like down? See how it's coming, she's holding it this way and the cookie's coming out the right side. That's what I mean. It's almost this on side angle so that plumpness, and the other reason you pipe it on the side like that is so that the tip isn't pushing through the ladyfinger and actually making it flat. Now look at this. That was completely covered, right? She's not starting to pile on inches and inches and inches of powdered sugar, but is the cookie completely covered? Absolutely. So that's all I'm looking for this week, and then you're going to just see this is all the color you're looking for, just a light golden brown here. And look at that beautiful iconic crackle top that's made. And this is how much sugar should be left. So if you have like 20 inches of like powdered sugar on there still after baking, you probably overdid it. And if there's like nothing on there at all, even before you put them in the oven, just grab the sifter and the sugar back and just like re-tap over it. So does anyone have any questions on the ladyfinger production, like the steps to make said batter or how you are piping them? How do we sift just, okay, wait, my stand mixer does, my stand mixer doesn't start slowly, it just goes. Is it okay to hand whip slowly before placing in the mixer? That's definitely fine if you have to do that, Indica. If you already know that like some of your lower speeds aren't working, that's fine. Get the eggs really nice and frothy in there and then start them at medium high. How do we know what size tip? Okay, so for the crisp meringue cookies, if you want to do like little rosettes or kisses, an 825, an 824, 825, or 826 works really well. And if you want to do like Hershey Kiss, like a circle kiss, but like a meringue kiss without the star tip, just like a flush, perfect kiss, a really nice tip for that is like an 805 or an 806. So I really like those. When you get too small, you don't really have much coming out there. So I'd say for star tips, 824s to your 826s are great. For circle tips, your 804s to your 806s will be great. Now, does anyone have any questions on, is there a way to fix that, or would that have to be remade? Fix what, Jazz? Do you mean the Chris meringue? Can you say that again?
You said once it starts blending into each other, that means we overdid it. Is there a way to fix that, or do we have to just remake it?
If you're piping the lady fingers and you see that they start to blend into each other, unfortunately, no, there is no way to fix that. It would have to be restarting over, making sure those egg whites were super clean, that you got to the proper peaks and ribbons and so on and so forth. Because like folding more flour into it would just be making it like glutenized and would completely change the texture. So yes, if we've started to weep, we've got to start over or take it as a learning experience, you know. Okay, so I'm going to go into the last recipe here. And remember, guys, you're also going to find this one for the Swiss meringue I'd like you to do and the baked Alaska in the instructor announcement section. Another note I would like you to please take in this simplified version is the 227 grams of sugar. Please change it to 175. Please change the Swiss meringue recipe for the simplified version from 227 to 175. What is 113 times 2? Anyone want to tell me? What's 113 times 2? 226, right? So if there's 227 grams of sugar in there, isn't the sugar twice as heavy as the egg whites? That's pretty heavy, and it's a little hard to do for the first time making Swiss. That's why I say bring this down to 175, have this be 100, and then turn this into 25%. Okay, so now instead of having a 50 to 100, we're going to have a 25 to 100. We're going to make that sugar much less. We're going to make our lives so much easier. So now on a double boiler, super simply, literally 2 ingredients. You are going to take the 175 grams of completely clean egg whites. You're going to take, no, I'm sorry, you're going to take the 113 grams of completely clean egg whites. You're going to take the 175 grams of sugar over a perfectly fitted double boiler with only an inch or 2 of water, very far from the end of that bowl, with no space in between to have steam and perspiration smacking into our meringue. We know that that bowl and that pot fit perfectly. We're going to put those clean egg whites, that sugar, on that bowl, on that double boiler, and we are going to whip and whip and whip so that that egg white doesn't cook, and we're going to get to 145 degrees this week. We went to 120 last week. We're going to 145 this week. Pull the thermometers back out. Make sure you get no more, no less. When you get to that 145, what's going to be on the bottom of the bowl? Moisture. What are you going to do? Wipe it off. Wipe off the bowl. Throw it on the mixer, put that whip attachment on, whip and whip it, whip from medium up to a high speed, because we have hot sugar egg syrup in there, right? The last thing you want to do is kick the mixer up too high and have like burning molten 3rd degree, like smack you on your hand, right? So medium to high, and then you're going to whip that meringue all the way till you get to the shiniest firm peak that you can. Now that you have the lower increment of sugar, you may find that you can actually get all the way to stiff, but if you get to like a nice solid firm, that is what you're looking for. Carlos?
For last week's recipe, I used the glass bowl, and that turned out pretty good. I was able to control it. Should I avoid using the glass bowl for this one?
You can use the glass bowl. Any of you can use the glass bowl, but as you go further into your career and into your experience, I love you to move away from them, only because they're hella dangerous. So like,
yeah,
you know, like a hot glass bowl, if you like lost your handle on it for even a sec, Carlos, and like it hit the countertop too quickly
right.
at that 145, like you can risk shorting the glass. But I know that we all have glass bowls. We want to use what we have. Let's save some money. So as long as you're careful, you make sure that there's no breaks in that glass before you start, and you have like a nice dry dish towel on the side of you to have like a landing pad for it, you'll be just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I did. So I know what I want for Christmas. All right.
Yeah,
cool.
you want a nice set of metal mixing bowls with like 3 of them. That's like that 2.5 quart size because it's the magic
Yeah.
size. Yeah, don't I know it?
Thank you.
Awesome. That's a great question. I don't want to see any plastic on double boilers this week. You guys had me a little bit worried last week. Some of us, I think, were like melting our bowls to our pots. So, if metal mixing bowl isn't an option, like Carlos said, glass is going to be the next best, and then third best would be ceramic. But I'd love it if like none of us were using that. Jasmine?
I asked in the chat, but for the egg whites, can we use a carton or do we have to separate it from the yolk egg?
No, so that was the first thing I went over, Jazz, is that we're not allowed to use any carton, and we're not allowed to use any carton egg whites this week. Not only are they just not clean, they are an illegal. So they're like a foul this week. They result in a 0 because not only will you never be able to whip a meringue with those carton egg whites, because again, they are not fully clean, but we have to learn how to separate egg whites fresh from the shell.
Okay.
So if you're ever doing like your sugar cookies again and you want to make like royal icing, that's a time where you're not whipping an egg white. So you could totally use the cartons, to save yourself so much time and energy. But with these meringues, we've got to use those fresh eggs from the shell. Okay, so the other thing is now we have whipped and whipped and whipped. We've taken this off the heat. We have to use it immediately. So again, I said this once before, but not a single one of us is making or measing or even thinking about Swiss meringue until we've made the ladyfingers, right? Because we just figured out for almost an hour now that those spiral beautiful bases we just saw in that video is the first part of our 3-component dessert. So if the ice cream has to go onto the ladyfinger base, and then that ice cream needs to be covered with Swiss meringue, we cannot put ice cream onto something that does not exist. So you have to make the ladyfingers, cool the ladyfingers, and then put ice cream on top of the bases. So this is how your simplified ladyfinger baked Alaska should look. So this is the mise I want to see. I don't really want to see the ice cream out. That's a little scary to me because like that's getting soft for you. But like if you want to do that, sure. But like here's the bases, right? Oh, come on. It happens to me too, guys. Okay, check this out. So we made the spiral bases. They're sitting here. We cooled them. Bam. Now we got our ice cream out. We made an even leveled scoop. This scoop is the body of what you are covering in the meringue. So if you make yourself a dilapidated, decrepit, contortionized scoop of ice cream that looks nothing like a scoop, that is like 5 little teaspoons like smashed together on the cookie, are you going to have a seamless, beautiful, bold scoop of ice cream in the middle of your meringue? No, right? If this is the thing you need to pipe around, you want to do your darndest to make this a nice scoop. Okay, so I'd love to see you try your hardest to get like a larger scoop this week, or if you just have tablespoons, that's fine, but get the ice cream to a point where you can make a nice scoop like this, and where also you've left yourself like a 1/4 inch to 1 inch of cookie around the end of that ice cream scoop where you're going to start piping. So we make our crisp meringue cookies or not, doesn't matter, but we cannot make Swiss meringue until we make the ladyfingers. We have the ladyfingers, any ice cream we want, multiple ice creams we want. We're not making ice cream, store-bought ice cream, whatever ice cream. We're making ourselves a beautiful, even mound scoop of ice cream because we know this is what we need to pipe on. We're leaving a drop of space around that ice cream scoop. You are showing the mise en place for your Swiss meringue. Swiss meringue is a full-blown recipe this week. I see a lot of people not take this picture in week 5 because they get a little bit more concerned about this. This is a recipe this week. You have to take the mise for the Swiss meringue. This is a beautiful 145-degree temp whipped to a shiny, stiff, firm peak. Here is the setup. This person has now put all 6 of those bases back in the freezer. They have ensured that when they touch that ice cream scoop, so what's going to happen here is you're going to do this step right here, and then all of these with the ice cream now scooped are going to go back into the freezer for 4 hours to overnight. You're not even going to think about making the Swiss meringue until you touch those ice cream scoops and you check that they're rock solid. So if you can get a finger indent in there, they're too soft. You don't want to start the Swiss meringue. If they are so hard, they're like hockey pucks, you know you can start the Swiss. So you scooped, you refroze, you checked, they're so hard. Now you make the Swiss meringue. Now, one at a time, you pull them out and you cover them in the Swiss meringue all the way. The only insulator to that meringue, to that ice cream, is your Swiss meringue. If there is even a pea-sized hole of ice cream exposed, the ice cream will melt. You have to, I want to say 365, but I almost want to say 400 degree, cover this ice cream. So again, not a pea-sized hole of that ice cream can be showing. So again here, look at all three of these, but they were all done one at a time to keep the ice cream frozen. But see how no ice cream's melting out? See how you can't tell there's even ice cream in here yet? And that's because it's perfectly insulated. And then when you cut it down the middle, if you make that gorgeous scoop, if you ensure that the ice cream scoops are frozen solid before you start the meringue, if you pull one of the perfectly frozen scoops on the bases out one at a time, and you do this beautiful song and dance of understanding that this is so temperamental, that the Swiss meringue needs to be used right away, that the ice cream is frozen, you can achieve this gorgeous 3-component dessert where you've got perfectly held up, completely frozen ice cream that you have literally torched on the outside with a beautifully spongy ladyfinger and silky, silky, shiny Swiss meringue. Now, if you don't have a torch, you're going to use a 450 to 500 degree oven. And for 3 or 4 minutes, you are just going to pop that baked Alaska in and then pull it out. That's all you're going to do if you don't have a torch. Lori?
Where can I get a torch?
You can get a torch online. You can actually get them at like smoke or tobacco shops. They have handheld torches there. And then like I'm guessing probably like at craft and pastry stores. But
Well, I have a lighter that's got a torch on it.
What'd you say?
I have a lighter that has a torch on it.
Like you push it and it's like
Yeah.
no. That will not do it. That's like
I'll go to the tobacco shop in town then.
yeah, no, you want the one that's like full blown shooting out. I'm gonna pull it up while I
Okay.
answer questions. Okay, Lori. Jasmine?
Okay.
I got two. I can never open the practice, the sample pictures. Is there a way I can get that sent to me for this week so I can look to make sure what I'm doing is correct?
Absolutely, but the other way you need to make sure what you're doing is correct, because Jasmine and everybody here, I want to make sure I'm very clear with you that you are not going to be provided sample assignments after my class. So I'm more than happy for you to go to the instructor announcement section to provide you directly with this link, but do understand that moving forward, none of those sample assignments will be given to you because you'll be more advanced students. And the place that you always want to make sure, Jasmine and everybody, that you are taking what you need to take is populating the box that we are in and making sure that every one of these required proofs are taken. So of course you can follow along with the sample assignment this week, but I think getting into the school of thought of printing this out or writing this down and making sure that this is what you do is what's most important.
Okay.
And then guys, remember when I showed you all the way back in week 1, I know it's been ages, that there was like that document that I made for you guys that has all of the required proofs, but like in a document form. For those of you that have that sheet, I want to make sure you see and know that I provided what the simple version would be for you to take those images. So real quick, if we scroll down to number 5, you're going to see like required proofs, but then please check out simplified version. So if you're looking at the class page and you're going, wait, what the heck? It says like in a ramekin with the sponge around the sides, bottom and top. That would be if you were doing the interactive, more complex one. For the simplified one, please just visit my week 1 instructor announcement section, and then it's the required pictures for all thing. And this is all you're going to do. It's really the only difference. Okay. But yeah, Jasmine, I can definitely send those to you.
No, you don't have to send because I do want to start getting better at some stuff.
No, absolutely, but it doesn't hurt to look at it, you know, especially with 2 versions, you know, it doesn't hurt to look. I just want to make sure you always know where you're going, you know, for your next classes and everything.
Thank you. For the after make the meringue, is there a technique we can use to keep it maybe in the fridge, or do we have to put it back in the freezer,
Do you mean the
so we can
Swiss
eat it
meringue?
the next day?
Do you mean
Yeah,
the Swiss meringue for the baked Alaska?
yeah.
That doesn't hold at all. Not only does it have to be used immediately, but it can't be stored. So Jasmine, if you have extra of that, my biggest recommendation is to either cover more baked Alaskas, but don't torch them. Like cover them in the Swiss meringue and then put them back in the freezer covered if you just don't have enough people to eat them all at once. Or if you don't want baked Alaskas at all and you just want to get rid of the Swiss meringue, take really clean quarter or half sheet trays, and with your extra meringue, spread it really thin on the sheet trays. And then just like the crisp meringue cookies, bake them really low and really slow, and you'll have like crackled meringue bark that you can kind of like place on cakes, that you can fold into ice cream, that you can, decorate with. And then that's kind of how you get those like meringue shards that you see people decorate with. And you could always use it for that. You could throw it in a bag, airtight bag, and just snack on them. But that would be kind of how you get rid of them.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know, Thalia, if there's a pastry torch at Walmart or Target. I mean, I would assume that places like that definitely have it. I just don't know for your exact area and zip code. But if you go onto Target or Walmart.com, you type in your zip code, you type in torch, you look for it, and it says like pick up in your store, then that's how we would know it was available. But again, if you don't have a torch and this is due in 7 days, you're going to turn the oven up to the highest it goes. You're going to put 1 or 2 at a time on an oven safe plate or sheet tray. And then you're just going to let them get a drop of that oven torching for 3 or 4 minutes. That's all. Carlos, do we have a question, or is that an old hand?
Sorry, that's old.
No worries. Sean?
Yes, I was looking in the instructor announcements for the sample proofs that you were talking about, and I don't see it there. Am I missing it?
Can you say that again?
I was looking in the instructor announcements under week 5 for the sample pictures that we need.
Okay, that's the tricky part. It's under week 1 materials. So I can put it in there too. That might be really helpful, but it's under the week 1 materials. So if you could just go back to instructor announcements and go here in capitals, I have list of proofs here, and that's where it is. I can also, let me just throw this in the chat for everyone right now. I hope you guys can click stuff in the chat. Let's see here. I just lost my whole screen. What just happened? Okay. Okay, and I can also send that through Moodle or through email for anybody. And Sean, do you have any other questions I can get for you?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, of course, of course. Now, guys, I'm going to pull up the torch again. This guy is 33% off for some reason right now. This is an excellent pastry torch. You basically fill this with like butane tanks that have like the white straw spigot at the end. You push it in the bottom, and that is what heats it. And then what's really cool about this is, see this little twisty guy on the back? That's what adjusts the heat. So you could actually turn it up, you can turn it down. Now you can also just use like because I'm not gonna lie to you, this is what's gonna be in the kitchen, is like those bigger like camping torches. No, where's the one I want? I don't know what it even would be called. Okay, yeah. So like when you take that big tank of like butane or propane and you just put this thing on top of it, like the big like blue or green cans, like from Home Depot or Lowe's, a lot of times you'll just see it with this trigger starter on top of it. Is there an example of it? I wish there was. I guess not. But this is a lot of times how you'll see it. So like if like someone in the house, like go camping a lot, if you know you have one of these tanks and you just want to get this part, that's an option too, because there's going to be so much more gas in there, you know. Propane tank with torch. Let's see if that does anything. Okay, yeah, this one, like this with this is like what was on every single one of my pastry stations. So I had something like this big, like under my arm, like how you pour wine, and I would be doing it like this. So very much like a setup like this as well. So if you have one of these and you know you can turn it down, you can use this too. You don't have to buy that little handheld guy. Of course, it's easier, but like this setup, I won't lie to you, 9 times out of 10 is what you're going to see in a kitchen, because this is cheaper for chefs. We're able to buy this without getting any slack from restaurant owners and managers, because it's so much more for so much less. We don't break it, we don't lose it. It's more industrial. But if you want to get that small $10, $20 handheld one too, that's fine. Does anyone have any questions? I know for a fact that they definitely sell that at Walmart. For the first time I saw the bigger torch, really intimidated. It is super easy. As soon as you get it on, like Nicole's saying, you get it lit. All you're doing is turning this little part here to adjust the heat. Okay, I'm going to pull up a few pictures of baked Alaska examples, and then we are going to go our separate ways here. Okay, guys? So again, no harm, no foul on doing the simplified version, because check this out right here. Isn't the ladyfinger only on the bottom? Isn't the ice cream just like this? And the meringue is just around it the same way you're going to do it. If you pull up baked Alaska like I just did into Google, I'm doing exactly what you would do in a Google search. You're going to see exactly the simplified version I'm showing you. You're going to see 9 times out of 10, or almost 10 times out of 10, that ladyfinger is not 365 encapsulating that sponge. And that's why me and all the other chefs say to you, please do this week, because you want to have fun, you want to be successful, you want to feel good, and you deserve to. This is what torching looks like more. This is what the oven looks like more. This is a French tip. This is a circle tip in like a beehive shape. This is really cool. This is like spackling with just using an offset spatula. Let's see here. This is really cool. This is a circle tip, beehive style. And then this is a torch, because we can tell the difference there on the torch. This is the oven versus the torch. This is the oven versus the torch. Let's see. There's one that I really like that shows how beautiful the oven one is each week. And I want to make sure I show you that guy. This is torching. See how you can see like how it's different? It's like more marshmallowy toasted, because you're so up close and personal to the meringue. The torch, you have the ability to get just an inch, a half an inch from that meringue, where in the oven, you're putting it in this big open rectangle. Your baked Alaska is about this big, and you're hoping in 3 or 4 minutes to get like a little bit of some flash on it. Now, honestly, the oven way was the way that this dessert was made originally. So please don't feel like you're going to lose any points, or that your baked Alaska will be like less beautiful if it is done with the oven method, because it's totally expected, it's natural, and that was the origin of this dessert anyway. So if yours comes out looking a little speckled, a little lighter in that torch, in that browning, I understand that. I'll immediately know if you used a torch or you used the oven. But again, this meringue is falling. It's too heavy. It was probably overheated or underheated. If you see your meringue doing this and it's getting foamy, that means that you over whipped it and it's broken. So then when you torch it or you heat it, it'll look like foam. So we want to make really sure that we, of course, get to a firm or a stiff peak, but just don't exceed that. And yeah, these are just some examples. Have fun with it. Use a star tip, use a circle tip, use the offset spatula and spackle it. Make 4 different ones, use 2 or 3 different kinds of ice cream, really whatever you like. But remember the fundamental key steps, that you cannot ever whip a meringue if those egg whites are not 150% clean, that every single one of us has to use clean, fresh egg whites from the shell, that we cannot make the Swiss meringue until we've made our ladyfinger baked Alaska bases, that when we get that ice cream scooped on there, we want to ensure and solidify that that ice cream is rock solid, that we're going to start the Swiss meringue and use it right away. So does anyone have any questions on the crisp meringue cookies, on the ladyfingers, or on any of that? I'm going to show just a really quick example of what your crisps will look like this week and what like a really nice healthy bake on those is. So here we're at our soft peak where we're holding on, we're frothy. Check out that stiff peak. Nothing's weeping. We're straight up at 12 o'clock, right? We're folding so gently. Check out that beautiful inflation that's capped. We're not weeping. All the movement of the star tip is there. And now check out the bake on those. They stayed white. There's only a drop of cracking, which is totally expected. Guys, I don't expect you to for these to be like starch white, not a speck of cracking, completely perfect. Like, this is a very finicky thing to get the perfect time and temperature on, besides the fact that it's a meringue. So if you get a drop of color or a drop of cracking, I get it. But I want you to more so see like how we know it's dehydrated, not over or under. So check out here, like if you touch this, doesn't this look matte on the outside versus shiny, right? Doesn't it look, it looks dry, right? So we know if we touch that, it's not like sticky, it's dehydrated. And then check out on the inside here. See how I told you if you could grab all of it, it was this wet goopy thing that it wasn't good, but see how there's just a drop of that shine? It's only a drop of shininess and moisture, but 90% of this is like dried out, you know, pretty much really trying to hold that shape. And we only have a little bit of that chew. So you want to be at like 60, 75% dried out with like a 25, 30% of like a light chew shine in there. If it's more than this, you got to keep going in the oven. And this is how they should look on the plate. Pretty starch white, shape held, not much cracking, minimal color. That's all you're really looking for on those this week. And then this is exactly how your ladyfinger submission is going to look if you have done the simplified version. So you're going to show me that beautiful 3-second ribbon. You're going to show me whipping to the firm moist peak, folding very gently. And this, look at this. See how I can see all the movement of that tip? See how I can see that spiral even underneath the sugar? That's the sugar amount. This is how the sugar should look. I can still see cookie, but it's not speckles. It's liberally covered evenly. Ladyfingers, just a few. Light golden brown. And then see how the ladyfinger is what's caught and shown to me. This is the perfect internal structure. Look at how plump that is. Look at the volume on that ladyfinger. Look at that gorgeous light. This is just so spongy, so light, so airy. If we achieve this, if we keep that inflation, you've done a great job. I really hope that you guys enjoy the magic that is meringue this week. I look so forward to seeing these submissions. It's like one of my absolute favorites to grade. If you need any help with this at all, come to me, make a one-on-one appointment, call or text me, and I will be there to help. Make sure everything is in on time because guys, I want to put it in your ear. Week 6 is a short week. So next week, when we start week 6 on Wednesday, we don't end on Tuesday, we end on Sunday. You have 2 less weeks to do your week 6 assignment and your week 6 quiz. So the last week you'd want to fall behind on would be week 5 if you know week 6 is a short week, right? So let's finish out strong. Let's submit earlier on time. Let's keep that momentum rolling nice and strong through the last week and a half of class, because believe it or not, today's the 7th. We end on the 18th. So we only have like 10 and a half days left together. So if you need anything at all, if there's anything that you wanted to resubmit or add to from the last 4 weeks, know that that is due with your week 5 submission. And any discussion forums or quiz that you may have not taken, please take those before Tuesday as well. If there are no other questions, I am going to let you guys go. I'm going to let you enjoy your night and enjoy, again, that magic that is meringue. I hope you all can kind of get geeked out and as excited as I do. Take your time with it. Have patience with yourself. As long as your ingredients and your attachments and your bowl are clean, you will be golden. Sean?
I just wanted to make sure that I am remembering this correctly. If we do the assignments over more than one day, each day we have to have a sanitation picture and a self-ID for
Exactly.
each.
Yep. Every new calendar date you step in the kitchen, new ID and sanitation. Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
You're so welcome. Have a wonderful night, guys. Thanks again.